Right, that seems to have settled. So good morning, and it's good to welcome you here to our Powering Up Lancashire event hosted by Electricity Northwest. My name is Miranda Barker. I'm the Chief Executive of East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce and the Lancashire Let Director, and I'm the chair of today's event. And a warm welcome to everyone who's joined us for this extremely important Powering Up Lancashire Roundtable, and also extremely timely. We couldn't have timed this better, could we, with the launch this morning of the 10-point plan from Boris Johnson. And I see shades of the last possible sort of piece of Dominic Cummings' work in this as well, because he was an extremely strong supporter of net zero. It's wonderful to see so many businesses and political leaders from Lancashire join us today. And we have some expert industry and academic speakers joining us as well. And I hope we will have a really lively debate and sort of driving forward policy type of conversation to really make sure Lancashire is leading the way to net zero and a green recovery. And looking at what we've all done over the last few months, it really is about leading that recovery. We have such potential. I want to thank particularly Electricity Northwest for their involvement in creating this event, and all of the others they've been driving around the Northwest, and their really proactive stance on supporting our low carbon sector and the positive moves of Lancashire towards a low carbon future. In the context of the COVID-19 crisis, the decarbonisation of energy and the potential that it brings for our businesses is really keen, really important, both because we have so many low carbon tech sector experts in Lancashire manufacturing and creating jobs, but also it's really important as a diversification route for our manufacturers who are under pressure to look for alternative things to manufacture. And of course, it's a huge sector with a huge global potential, and exporting capability in Lancashire is key. So it really is a strong sector for us to be in every possible way. So we need everyone to be working together to really unlock that potential for Lancashire. So hopefully this is a major plank in pulling those policy discussions together. I hope we're able to come up with something which creates an energy and infrastructure and carbon reduction plan for Lancashire going forward. So in terms of introducing our speakers and talking to you about the agenda today, you can see it there on the slide in front of you. We have two panels after our welcoming address from Paul Bircham from Powering Up Lancashire. And our panels firstly will be looking at the political and questions posed and the challenges around taking us forward in Lancashire to net zero. So we'll be hearing, as you can see, from Stephen Young from Lancashire County Council, Paul Foster from FSB, Anthony Higginbotham, our MP in Burnley, and Gila Dowding, the Lancashire City and Lancaster City and Lancashire County Council representative. And then we'll be looking at the opportunities with our second panel. So looking at some of the industry leaders here and hearing from Andrew Stevenson, our Transport Minister with responsibility for HS2, but also huge amount of past with us in advanced manufacturing space, and HS2 is a supply chain opportunity for Lancashire businesses as well, of course. Derek from IoT Horizon, Liz from UTAN, Gerard, I've never called you Gerard in my whole time of knowing you, Jed, from Low Carbon Energy, and Georgina, Head of Policy at Public Services at Inspired Energy. So they'll be looking very much at the opportunities that Lancashire can capitalise on the way through to a journey to net zero. So these are the key questions we'll be posing. And as you can see, really led by how is Lancashire going to lead the way? And it is about leading. If you were working with the development agency as I was 10 years ago, you would know that the Northwest is the centre of low carbon tech and energy technology manufacture in the UK. And Lancashire is a really strong leader in that field. And it is a huge potential area for us in terms of creating jobs and creating manufacturing capability and products that can then be exported around the world. So it really is about how we can put in place the right structures and support for that in terms of the investment from Electricity Northwest, the challenges that Lancashire County Council are going to have to put in place as well in terms of the infrastructure to help us do that. And then what opportunity do we have from this sector to really help our recovery, but also our resilience for our local economy going forward. So just to move to housekeeping that you need to be aware of. As you can see, there is the hashtag that we'd like you to use if you're making any social media comments about the event, and please do, because the media really is watching this topic today. We're going to have 3 live polling questions throughout the session. They'll appear on your screen, and then we'll look at the answers that come forward. If you use the chat function by putting the little sort of voice box button on the bottom on your screen, you'll have the chat function, and we can see your opinions coming forward there, and we can all see those to then help us steer in terms of the discussion and look at any questions coming forward. If you can give us a hint as to who you're specifically aiming that question at before you put your question in, that will help me steer it in the right direction. And if you want to ask the question live, please say that you want to, or I'll call on you if I know you and you want to do that, or I'll jump on you anyway. So we'll try and get some discussion going two-way between the audience and the participants on the panel as well. Can I remind everyone to keep your microphones muted, because we get all sorts of background noise, and that's a point from me as well. If I suddenly disappear and go quiet, it's because the dog's about to bark. So keep talking. It's always a hassle, but it's what we're living with it in this modern Zoom world. So without further ado, we want to move on to our keynote speaker effectively today, Paul Bircham from Electricity North West.
Thanks very much, Miranda. And as you say, it's great to be holding this event today, enabling our speakers to give us an initial response to the government's exciting announcement of a 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution. And let's think about what it means for Lancashire. So Electricity North West, we're here to keep everybody's lives running for all our customers across Lancashire, connecting people and connecting businesses through our electricity network. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has been a really challenging and difficult time for us all, and the recovery will perhaps be even more challenging. We all need to recalibrate our priorities and our relationship with the environment, and particularly with energy, as we change and we think about how we drive that recovery and also decarbonise our lives and businesses. So these are really unprecedented times, the massively overused phrase of 2020, I think. But it makes it even more important for us to work together and to get real clarity on what our plans are for decarbonisation as our relationship with energy changes. And we're really keen to hear from everybody in doing that. We're really keen to get clarity from local government. We're keen to hear exactly what business wants from us as we facilitate their growth and their recovery. And we think we can play a leading role in the North West recovery and in building back better endeavour to address that. And we want to continue to lead the way and support Lancashire. We're investing in strategic projects to support the economy and to support jobs, such as our £7 million investment in infrastructure to power the new high-tech enterprise park at Samlesbury. We're ensuring there's enough capacity in the network now, and there will be all the capacity that the network needs in future with our future investments to ensure that there's no break on our ambition to decarbonise at the right pace for Lancashire. We're keen to work with key partners and local leaders to ensure we understand all of that local ambition and local development plans, and to establish regional decarbonisation pathways that allow Lancashire to achieve its goals. And we're leading the way with our own decarbonisation examples within our own business. So we have a comprehensive plan to get to a zero carbon footprint for our business. And we have a number of examples that help demonstrate how we do that, such as our Zero Carbon Training Academy, which is based in Blackburn. So today's event is all about building collaboration and looking at how Lancashire can lead the way in green innovation, in skills, in jobs, and the response and the recovery from COVID-19. I'm delighted we've been able to bring together political and business leaders from across Lancashire. And it's really a critical time for electricity networks. We're currently undertaking our largest ever engagement campaign, and that is to inform our business plans that we will submit to our energy regulator Ofgem next year, which covers the investment plan and the money that we will be spending in Lancashire from 2023 to 2028. And that's a key period now. By 2028, it will just be 2 years from the complete ban on fossil fuel vehicles that will come into effect in 2030. So it's essential that we hear from the leaders of business, local government and other stakeholders about your priorities for the future. We want our plans to support and protect our customers and give them the electricity network that they need to meet all of their electricity requirements in the future. So therefore, we're going to be surveying your views today during this event. We're going to be listening really closely to all of our speakers, and we're going to be unashamedly promoting our ongoing engagement activities because they're designed to give you all a clear voice in shaping the future of electricity and electricity investment for Lancashire. So in this context, it's really important that we talk about why and how Lancashire has the potential to provide the impetus for green energy and net zero innovation, especially through renewable energy. And so we hope Power Up Lancashire will ask some very important questions and give us some initial answers on what the future really requires. Back over to you, Miranda.
Thank you very much, Paul. We were struggling with your microphone a little bit there, but it seemed to improve a bit, and it's always difficult with these kind of events. And so thank you very much. It is really brilliant to hear the investment that Electricity North West is planning on making, and to also have such a proactive organisation in terms of asking people what they need and looking for what we need to put in and getting the buy-in from the different areas around the Northwest to make sure we're driving that agenda with you to unlock the potential of all of our low carbon sector, and not just take us through to net zero in a passive way, but really be part of that and driving that and able to steer it to best support our businesses and to achieve the most we can from our business sector. You know, everything from creating the bi-directional network we're going to need for all of the supply that could be generated locally and enable micro generation, and all of the businesses that we see around the room we've got physically here in front of us. It's really good to hear your involvement and your proactive stance, and to be able to work with you on this agenda. And I hope that our speakers and our participants will be really positive and coming up with sound suggestions and how they can be involved in the future progression of this as well, because this isn't just a one moment discussion. This is the next few years for us all being involved together in really capitalizing on this for Lancashire. So if we can move to our first panel discussion, I want first of all just to ask you in turn to just touch briefly on our key question for the first panel, and then we'll move into other questions which we'll tap into as you want to go ahead with. So our first question, and Anthony is our first answer to this question. What do you think are the key environmental and economic challenges Lancashire faces on the road to net zero?
Thanks very much, Miranda, and thanks Paul and everyone for the invite. I think the first thing to say is, I think what Paul said is incredibly positive, because energy is the enabler for all of our economic growth, right? Without having the right electricity mix and the right infrastructure, we just don't have an economy that can function. I think there's three big challenges we face as we progress through to net zero. And you're right, we couldn't have picked a better day for it. It's almost like the PM was anticipating this event. The first challenge I think we've got is on skills, and making sure that not just young people who are about to enter the jobs market have the skills they need for the future, but that actually all the people who currently work in various sectors have the skills they need. And I was really pleased to see Karen on from Burnley College, because I think actually they're leading the way on this, and we've got a fantastic college in Burnley. But what we need, if we think about some simple things like car mechanics, well, currently all of our mechanics are trained up in how to deal with combustion engines, and in less than 10 years, those engines won't be being produced anymore. So actually giving people the skills they need to be able to repair, manufacture, and do all of the things with the engines we're actually going to be producing is a big challenge for us. 10 years sounds like a long time, but actually with the pipeline of people you've got and making sure that you've got the educators who understand the systems well enough to then go and train the next generation is going to be a big task for us. But I think things like the lifetime skills guarantee are going to be a hugely important part in making sure that we can do that moving forward. The next challenge we've got is kind of pertinent to this discussion, which is the infrastructure we've got, right? As Paul said, it's going to require a huge amount of investment from Electricity North West, but also if we think about the gas network we have, right? If we're going to start using the gas network instead to transport hydrogen, then that requires boilers in people's homes to be changed, requires us to think about the cooking appliances we've got in the home. So actually all of these things have to come together to make sure we've got the skills to change all the infrastructure we've got, and then the skills we need to then respond to the new infrastructure that's going out there. And then the third challenge, which is a far more difficult one to address, is carrying the public with us on this. Most people across the country accept that we've got a big challenge and we have to get to net zero. But as things change, we will start to see people pushing back or questioning, especially as we're trying to retrain people. We know these big economic shifts bring with them challenges. And that's a challenge that I think we have to address as politicians in making sure we carry the country with us, but actually all businesses and local authorities and every partner on this call will have a really important role to play in making sure that the public are on this journey with us as well, making sure that they understand why we have to stop selling combustion engines in 2030, what that means for the cars they've got, as well as when they replace the cars. So that, that's going to be difficult for us, but I think, we will get there. And that's a big part of what the Prime Minister set out today, which is selling the positive vision to people, that it's not just about stopping one thing, it's about replacing it with something else that is positive, that will improve people's skills and jobs. They're energy efficient, it saves them money. And if we use things like that, telling people the difference it will make to their lives, I think we can take people with us. I think that's probably my 3 minutes, Miranda.
Thank you very much, Anthony. And Anthony, of course, is an MP for Burnley, where you've got a huge amount of manufacturing going on, not only in the low carbon sector, but also in those sectors which are under pressure at the moment and might be looking to move into low carbon. So it's a real positive opportunity for you, and I'm really pleased to see that. So moving on to our next speaker, same overarching question, really, and that is to Stephen Young from Lancashire County Council, please.
Thank you, Miranda, and thank you from colleagues from Electricity North West for the opportunity to come in and speak about this really important event today. I suppose from our perspective, I mean, when you look at the challenge that the government's laid out of net carbon zero by 2050, I mean, this is a massive, huge partnership challenge. It's clearly not something that any organisation can deliver on their own. I mean, just looking at some of the figures that sit behind that particular target, to deliver that, you would require a doubling of the current electricity supply that the UK provides. You would need to transform the transport system and our heating model, just to mention a few of the massive challenges that particular overarching target presents. I was going to say at this point that it would be helpful if the government had a clear policy as to how it was going to deliver that, but obviously they've done that this morning, so that's really responsive government for you. I suppose the other big key from the County Council's perspective, and I suppose from Lancashire's perspective, is that COVID, whilst it's not brought many good things, it has brought one potential opportunity to really re-gear our economy and look again at how we look to grow in a green way. Obviously this wouldn't be an opportunity that would be presented under normal times, but there's a real opportunity now to try and build back more fairly in terms of our economy and build back on the back of a green economy. Lancashire being an incredibly rural place, it requires quite a lot of people to be economic active within the county, to be car reliant. So it's really important when we start to consider, and the County Council is very mindful of this, a new transport system. We have to be mindful that lots of people in Lancashire are very much car reliant. In terms of the county council, and Anthony's already mentioned the skills and the opportunity to reskill our workforce, which is also a very important part of the way that we address this particular challenge. Obviously, from the county council's perspective, we have a number of levers that we can bring to the party with the planning authority. So there's a real opportunity to look at how we consider planning applications and really consider things like natural capital within those decisions going forward. Obviously, with the transport authority, so there's a real opportunity to look at green transport and how we bring that particular lever into play. The other element that we've been talking about increasingly is using as part of our policy drivers, having net zero in all of our policy decisions and having that as a key part of our policy decision making going forward. The other big thing to mention, I suppose, and I suppose this is the case for any large organisation, one thing that COVID has really brought home to us is the number of what we now consider to be quite meaningless miles and journeys that we were to make. Now we've got the benefit of using Teams and other modern technologies like this. Obviously, we've dropped off the number of miles and the number of carbon producing journeys that we used to take, and we think that's really important and something that we want to keep going forward. So I will stop there because I suspect that's my 3 minutes and let others have their say. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. It's really good to have the county council represented here and part of the discussion and realising the potential for Lancashire in a business context as well. So we're all moving in the same direction. It's really pretty positive that you're here. And I know that the economic growth agenda is very much at the top of your role and your list of actions. So very much the right person. So moving on, looking very much from a business point of view, we've got Paul from the Federation of Small Businesses, Paul Foster.
Thank you, Miranda, and again, thank you to Electricity North West for the invitation to join the panel. Small businesses do recognise the potential that Lancashire has to play a key role within the move to generate new clean energy, and they want to be a big part of that. We've got obviously significant resources at the moment within the county in terms of our nuclear power capability, but also opportunities with wind power and tidal power, and obviously Global Centre for Eco-Innovation at Lancaster. So a lot to be positive about, but very much the feeling that this is an opportunity that we need to grasp, and that now is really the time. So what are the concerns with that? I mean, I suppose the first thing to say is, are we all, given the year that we're having, are we all sufficiently behind this agenda? As I say, with all the other things that are going on, that is something we'll have to think about from a business and a political perspective. Looking at a micro level, is government willing to devolve the power for us to do some of this work that we're already starting? We've got some great low carbon projects going on in Lancashire at the moment, but we need to probably take those to the next level, get more businesses involved in those. Are we going to get the ability to control our own destiny in that way? I certainly hope so. Businesses large and small are fully behind the agenda and are kind of already doing some really good stuff. Small businesses that I speak to across Lancashire are already switching to a renewable energy supplier, cutting their plastic usage, and also generating less waste in offices. So they're doing some stuff already. They want to do more, but they will need some support to do more. They recognise, though, and it's an interesting change, it's no longer optional even for small businesses. The world has changed, and the consumer is now expecting businesses to be sustainable and environmentally friendly. It's no longer an option for them, which I think is a really good thing, but they do need that support. The shop local message is stronger than ever at the moment, which is obviously reducing some journeys, but we do need to kind of think about what happens when we do get back to some kind of normality, hopefully in the near future. Will that continue? Can we look at local networks in that way? Broadband, I think, is an area that needs addressing. Stephen touched on it a moment ago. Again, we don't want to see moves back to unnecessary journeys that we had before, but we need probably to continually upgrade our broadband capabilities to make sure that we've got enough capacity. Also, electric vehicle charging points is a topical issue, given the announcements today. A lot of our housing stock remains old and inefficient and simply is not going to be able to accommodate a charging point. So we need to think about that as well. So these are what we would term environmental challenges, but I think the biggest challenges for us are economic. A lot of our businesses through the course of 2020 have taken on a lot of debt, and the real focus at the moment is on survival and how we're going to pay that debt off. So businesses I speak to are already kind of drawing back their plans on investment. So we're going to need to look at how we encourage businesses to invest, to look at more research and development, to make sure that we are kind of harnessing this to the best of our ability collectively. So a lot to think about, and yeah, hopefully that's a good overview of where the business sector is at present. Thanks, Miranda.
Thank you, Paul. And we've been working together with businesses in the Northwest since the late 1990s. And it is that twin challenge. It's the fact that the businesses at the moment are under massive pressure. So if there's a way of showing them how they can be working on the net zero agenda and making themselves more profitable and saving money, and then also helping stimulate our low carbon sector to help our Lancashire business route out of recovery, that would be really good. So moving on to our final panel speaker in this first panel, and it's good to see questions coming through, one already from Lizzie Collins and from Stephen Clark we'll get to in a moment. So our final speaker on this panel to do their answer to our first question is Gina Dowding. Now, Gina, we first met at the launch of the Green New Deal in an event in Manchester not that long ago, didn't we? So please give us your starter for 10. Gina, you're on mute. It's a famous catchphrase. It's the word of the dictionary of 2020, isn't it? Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for that introduction. And just to save Stephen Young any embarrassment, you've billed me here today as a Lancashire County Councillor. But actually, as you say, Miranda, we met when I was Green MEP for the Northwest. And really, I think I should be here in that role, former MEP, because I can't be here today speaking on behalf of Lancashire County Council leadership in any way. In fact, I might even be slightly critical, or more than slightly critical, of the leadership, but I'll come back to that in my last point. So you're absolutely right that today is, a significant day, but for some of us it's quite disappointing in terms of the government's 10-point plan. Not bold enough. The government doesn't seem to have realised just how urgent this situation is and the scale and the speed with which we need to address the emergency. So I think there's quite a few people out there today who, when you look at the details of the 10-point plan, will find that it's actually disappointing and not leading us fast enough to the recovery that we need and the decarbonisation of the economy, and also the missed opportunity to provide a proper levelling up and more jobs. But just to go on, I'll start with that, because one of the things I learned when we met Miranda and when I first met Paul Bircham at the launch of my report, A Green New Deal for the Northwest, was just how significant and challenging the electricity distribution network is. And it was a bit of a eureka moment for me to realise that actually we have a huge challenge because we're now going to be looking towards micro generation, solar panels, so homes supplying the grid as well as taking from the grid, and that does need incredible investment. And I think that issue in itself hasn't yet been addressed by government, just the scale of the investment we need, but also the benefits that will produce by enabling community-owned and different forms of energy supply to the grid, and the kind of more equalising of the distribution and some of the profits that go with that. The last speaker just touched briefly on the issue of buildings and retrofit and energy efficiency, which of course is going to have to be part of the solution, because in electrifying nearly all of our energy needs, or a vast majority of them, we're really going to have to power down on so many areas, and energy efficiency in homes is going to be one of them. In the current situation, we have around 29 million UK homes not fit for purpose, and the Northwest has 6 out of the top 7 highest areas of fuel poverty. So, a huge challenge there in terms of upgrading homes and making them more energy efficient, but also massive benefits for the Northwest and for Lancashire particularly. Pendle, Burnley, Blackpool are all in those top 5 areas with the highest fuel poverty. So that's having knock-on effects on the well-being of our communities, but actually addressing that could have so many wins in terms of better health, lower fuel bills, and also lowering the demand on the electricity supply. One of the challenges there, of course, is that that's not going to be solved with a big private company investment. It's going to need a lot of small companies addressing that, and coordination and skills. But I think Lancashire is really up for that kind of response and that challenge with its small business network. We just need the leadership from government. I would also say on transport that there's so much focus at the moment on electric vehicles, and I would like, every time someone talks about e-cars, I'd like to say, what about e-bikes? You know, we do need to recognize that we can't drive our way, even with electric vehicles, out of this crisis. And certainly in some areas of Lancashire where you've got the hills and the dales, e-bikes could be a surprising addition to that shift towards cycling and walking, and they're just not on the agenda enough. So I'd like to just put that out there, that I think we could be seeing a gap in the market for e-bikes there. And something that I don't think anybody else will mention today, but it is particularly relevant in the Northwest, because this doesn't necessarily apply to electricity, but it does apply to our carbon problem, is that what we lack in trees in the Northwest, we make up for in peat. And yet our peat is in a terribly bad condition. And at the moment, 3/4 of the peat is emitting carbon where it should be actually a carbon sink. So that urgently needs addressing in the Northwest in terms of the environmental challenges. So I think, just to sum up, other people have talked about hydrogen, but we need to just bear in mind, whilst we have quite significant potential for green hydrogen production in the Northwest and in Lancashire, it has to be green hydrogen that we're talking about, because it's no good producing hydrogen from gas because we're just talking about more fossil fuels. So and the carbon capture technology associated with what is known as blue hydrogen has yet to be proven. So I don't think we can put all our eggs in that basket yet either, at all. But there are huge potentials for hydrogen and hydrogen fuel cells in our industries in the Northwest. So just finally, the biggest challenge, I would say, it's not so much getting the public on board. I think the public are clamoring for change, and they understand the problem, and they want the leadership, and they want to know, and our small businesses want to know that if they start investing in this, and if there's schemes like the grants for green home schemes that they're properly committed to from government, that there's time to sort this out, and that we actually really start to see the scale and the speed addressed by government, and that this is a long-term journey, and that they're going to stick with it until we get down to zero carbon at a much sooner date than 2050. But we have to start now. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. I'll catch up with you about that peak conversation and soon, because there is the potential to work with the Environment Agency on that. I think with their refreshed desire to look at climate resilience as well. So I think that's something we should take forward. This is not going to be a meeting where we're short of questions. I can see I'm frantically scribbling them down so I can keep track of them. So I will start with the first one, because it is a really prevalent one, and that came from Lizzie Collins, and it was a challenge to panelists, and I'm afraid we are going to start with Stephen on this. Why 2050? Why not 2030, even as a challenging target to try and aspire to reach, especially as that seems to have been, and I'm reporting just back from Lizzie, it's something that was previously agreed across the councillors. Why are we still looking at the 2050 target, Stephen?
I suppose from our perspective, we have merely aligned ourselves to the government's aspiration. You know, if we can deliver that target sooner rather than later, clearly that would be more preferable. I think like I said in my introduction, one of the big challenges is around resources and doing it in a deliverable way that you can bring people with you. You know, it has to be a green recovery that takes everybody along with us and doesn't leave people behind. I think that's been one of the big considerations that the councillors have had when they've had the deliberations in terms of this particular agenda. I mean, I certainly get a sense that, you know, within the county council and within our district colleagues, there is a real passion for this particular argument, and I see lots of conversations taking place in districts and at county council. You know, this is a real life topic that people are committed to. Some people may think we're not doing it as quickly as perhaps we could, but, you know, I suppose you've got to move at a realistic pace, and I suppose that's the reason that they've gone for 2050.
And I suppose we should all be there as the allies to work with to make that feasible. If it's feasible to go faster, we should be looking at how we all do that to try and work together on that argument. Anybody else from my panel want to come in on that question? Gina.
Yes, I would just add to that, you know, we have to look at what is realistic, and really the realistic response is a 2030 target, because we've got to meet this challenge. It's not sort of arbitrary, and the longer we leave it, the worse we're going to find ourselves in terms of climate mitigation, you know, the challenge later. One of the interesting things I've just come across in the pensions investment world is they're actually planning for the inevitable policy response. And that's a bit like we know that government is going to have to address a much earlier target. So we should be planning for that earlier target now, getting our policies in place so that we're ready with our systems. And this is only really a matter of a couple of years before the target changes, when we actually, you know, when the penny drops, if you like, and that's what's being talked about in the financial markets, in the policy world. Sorry, can you still see me? I've just faded out on my own computer.
It's okay, we can still see you.
Yeah, so and we know that councils and there are other areas of political leadership where they are setting the 2030 target. So I think you know, it's a matter of time before we adopt that, and the sooner we all across the business world, in every other sector, start planning for that, I think we'll find ourselves in a lot less pain later on.
Anybody else want to come in on that point? Anthony.
Thanks, Miranda. Yeah, I think we absolutely need to be as ambitious as we possibly can do, as we can be. I think, you know, we should recognise the steps we're taking. The first country to legislate towards this target, that's a bold step in and of itself. If you look at the 10-point plan, what we've said is by 2030, homes powered by wind, right? That's an incredibly stretching target, but one we can probably meet. But then we shouldn't forget that there are businesses that are heavy users of energy, and it will take longer for us to get that energy mix up to a point where everything can become net zero. So, you know, the ambition is definitely there to get to it as soon as we possibly can. You know, ending the sale of combustion engine cars by 2030, that's already brought forward. So that was you know, looking at all the science out there, looking at what's already available in the market, can we bring forward? And we've seen lots of car makers responding quite positively to it. So it's not to say we won't hit it earlier. It's well, what's a realistic target that we can work to? How do we provide certainty to businesses that, you know, whilst we're on this journey, we're not going to suddenly expect people to spend money that we know at the minute is in short supply. Businesses are dealing with quite a difficult situation. And so we're trying to balance all of those things. So the targets are there and they are stretching. And if we can hit it before 2050, clearly we will try to do so. Residential properties by 2030 or wind, but businesses will take a little bit longer. And I think it's about recognizing that this is a journey we're on, and we can't suddenly switch a switch and everything becomes carbon neutral.
Thank you very much. Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Miranda. To a certain extent, in our planning and our immediate planning horizons out towards the end of the next decade, the longer term targets don't make such a massive difference to us. But what really makes the big difference is the actions that we take now. So we're really keen to work with businesses, to work with the council, to promote things that can help businesses to take the first steps on their own decarbonisation journeys. We've published information across a range of business sectors on good steps that businesses can take, what they can do first of all to really help them start on a journey. And we're really keen on all the support that can be put in place to enable businesses to do that. One thing I would like to raise is the challenge back to our political leaders to consider, is it appropriate for us to do something about the rates effect of investing in solar power as a business? At the moment, there's potentially a disincentive that your rates bill increases if you invest in solar power. And we'd like to see that addressed as one of the things that can really help businesses make a positive case for them to make this investment and find it as a positive improvement to their business fortune.
Thank you very much. I'm clearly going to have more questions than I can handle within the time, and in a moment we need to go to the first of our polls. So what I want to do quickly is just recount the questions and the calls for action that have been coming in from our chat space, because they are good to list, to hear back to. So Anthony and Andrew and Paul and Stephen and all of those involving forming policy to support the journey to net zero can hear what's coming forward. So from Stephen Clark, we were hearing about the need for honest carbon accounting. So not looking at things that are billed as renewable energy sources, but that are still emitting carbon in the timescale that we're looking at. So burning of wood, etc. Even though renewable forests, the timescale just doesn't work in terms of the journey we've got to make. From Keith Rimmer about the need for funding to get quick retrofit happening. It's been the quickest way to get a wide scale change. And I can see Paul nodding in terms of benefiting the wide scale business audience to move quickly on that first step, support for that to happen. From John Whitten about the importance of making sure that the climate argument is accessible to all, even those who are in an economically difficult situation, and making sure the support's there to do that. From Jen Wilkie, to make sure there's investment for councils to be able to do the investment they need to do to take presumably their building stock and housing associations and the support for businesses forward. And lastly, again from Lizzie Collins, to look at ensuring there are baseline new building standards put in place. There might be stuff about retrofitting, etc., but we very much need the whole planning system changed. This is one of my hobby horses too, to make sure there are strong new standards on all new builds, whether they're residential or industrial, to drive forward that net zero take up, but also the demand for product and the production of product that we can all then make to help that happen. So those are the things that are coming through. So if we can start to sort of store those as calls back against what the government's talking about today and saying, okay, you've set us up saying, let's do this. These are the things that we need funding and creating and supporting. So we've got a list going that's coming live from the audience is really positive. So if I could hand over to Paul for our first poll. Are you driving this completely, Paul?
Well, yeah, thanks very much, Miranda. Just to quickly introduce it, as we said, we are looking at our investment programme from 2023 to 2028. And we're using all the information that we gather through this discussion, all the things that people post in the chat, all the views of panelists expressed and the answers to our questions to help us formulate that plan. But one of the other things we want to do is just to take the opportunity to poll the audience on a number of key questions that are helping us shape our investment plans. So we'll put the first poll up now. That goes in front of screens. And hopefully I can't see that.
So what do you think should be the top priorities for electricity in Lancashire? Multiple choice.
Yeah, so if everybody could choose the priorities they think there, I think they can choose up to 3 options and then click the submit button at the bottom when you've made your choice. Okay, so we've got quite a lot of responses coming in on that. And I think probably that's pretty much all the responses we're going to get. So it's worth if we could share the instantaneous results. Take your screen out. Okay, so hopefully panelists can you see the results there, Miranda?
I can indeed. We've got a majority, 54% coming in for delivering a reliable network, and then close behind a resilient network. Hang on, I can't see the bottom end of the results. Wait a minute. Oh no, there you go. Sorry, it's very small on my screen. So that's really good. 84% saying helping the Northwest become carbon neutral. So that's really overwhelming response, which is great.
That's very powerful, isn't it? Okay, very, very important.
And then following that, reliability and resilience, which I think is important as well from a business audience, because that's what we need in terms of operational. So that's really strong for carbon neutral.
Great. Well, thanks very much for everybody for participating in that survey, and we'll come back with a couple further questions later on in this event.
Can I just say thank you very much to my first panel. That was excellent handling of large topic of coming across to you from our audience there. Do please stay where you are as well and be on hand for contributing later on if you want to against the questions that we've got. So to introduce my second panel now, we have, as I said before, we have Andrew Stevenson, Derek Allen, Jed Ennis, Liz Gatherall and Georgina Penfold. So first of all, to answer our headline question, which is post-COVID, where are the opportunities for Lancashire to boost green jobs, renewables, investment and recovery? I'd like to introduce Andrew Stevenson, the MP for Pendle, Transport Minister, and strong supporter of supply chains for advanced manufacturing in the Northwest and in Lancashire.
Thanks, Miranda. Well, it's a real pleasure to be able to join everyone. And of course, in my current brief, I'm very much focused on decarbonising transport, which, because over the past few years, we've done such a good job of decarbonising the energy network, transport is now the biggest polluting sector in the UK. So obviously, we have to do an awful lot more to decarbonise, particularly road transport, but then obviously electrify our railways and various other things we need to do to sort our sector out. That presents challenges, huge challenges, which I deal with every day, but also huge opportunities. And particularly, I think, opportunities for Lancashire and for the North. The plan that was set out by the government today, I think, can really kickstart our green recovery in the North. It has the potential to create hundreds of thousands of jobs. And if you look at the expertise that we already have in Lancashire, I think there's huge opportunities here that we can seize right across a range of different sectors. Particularly close to my heart, as Miranda will know, because I've spoken at East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce events and other things about this, is the aerospace sector. Of course, we are looking at Jet Zero and trying to get future flight completely carbon neutral. But we have companies based across East Lancashire who can be at the cutting edge of delivering those new engines and that new technology supported by research and development. We also have some big aerospace companies like Rolls-Royce currently laying off many people in my patch, though, who are going to be supported through some of the other announcements today, like the support for small modular reactors. One of the consortium, Rolls-Royce-led consortium, is based in Blackburn, and the potential to actually do a lot of the metalwork and other components for the nuclear industry from companies like Rolls-Royce and the site in Barnoldswick, I think is really exciting. So a good announcement today, really good news, I think, on hydrogen. Again, if you look at where it's easiest for us to produce hydrogen across the UK, the North is country miles ahead in our ability to produce hydrogen, either from spare offshore wind capacity or through industrial byproducts. There's a huge scope here for us to really seize this opportunity. And if we're at the forefront of the technology and the forefront of the industry, I hope that our consumers will also be at the forefront of benefiting from that. So we're looking at Northern Properties to be the first to get zero carbon heating systems. We look at Northern households and how far further we can go in working with them. So I think it's an exciting day. It's good to be able to get some of this stuff out in the public domain after lots of discussion. This is an issue very close to my heart. Before I was in transport, I was in Bays for a few months, and again, as the automotive minister, spent an awful lot of time working with the industry. We've been working with the industry for years to support them in this transition, the biggest transition that the industry has ever seen, and it's having to go through this incredibly quickly if we're going to deliver on these now very ambitious targets. So lots of opportunities, but also lots of challenges. Interested to hear people's thoughts.
Thank you, Andrew. It is the speed, isn't it, of it that everything's happening at, that you know, we can see the day in, day out, the news mounting in terms of opportunities, but also challenges, and just fuel added to the fire yesterday and last night, obviously, with the latest announcement that there's so much investment coming, but it's also how we capitalize on that for the best and fastest journey to net zero, but also for our local population, our local businesses, our local environment. So our next panelist, same question in terms of the opportunities going forward. Derek Allen, Managing Director from IoT Horizon.
Thank you very much, Miranda, and thank you to Electricity North West for the opportunity to talk. So IoT Horizon, it stands for Internet of Things. It's a market, it's worth $82 billion, and it's about how we embed sensors into our machines and things. So when we look at zero carbon, we're moving from a consumptive model to a sustainable model. And as Councillor Gina said earlier, it's not about just electric vehicles, it's about our smart buildings and our smart machines. If we look at air quality at the moment, you know, it's very topical at the moment with COVID, but you know, things like the quality of air will impact things like our machines, you know, levels of particulates. So we need to invest in that area as well. And you know, it's really interesting to see the government's initiative recently around sort of particulate sensors and measuring the levels of air quality. You know, Manchester's air quality costs them £28 million a year. You know, in Lancashire, because of poor air quality, you know, mortality rates are quite high. So we're starting to look at things like smart ventilation, you know, and how can that help to restore confidence in our works, our schools, and our communities, and we can't keep opening the windows. So why IT, you say? So IoT enables things to be measured. As we call it, the power of now. I'll give you an example. We had a storage heater in our building in Blackburn, and we weren't really sure when it came on and when it came off. And we put a sensor on it, and we were actually able to find out that this storage heater came on at quite a, you know, in the middle of the night, and it got to a maximum temperature. And this was just one building. And we actually reported that back to the company, and they managed to save £10,000 of savings per year, and more importantly, 32 tons of annual CO2. And now we've got the Green Homes Initiative, you know, £3 billion of investment to better insulation. It's really important we also get behind that and look at, you know, how we can audit that in Lancashire. How are we going to make sure that insulation is going into those buildings? We looked at a building case recently for a large organisation, and we think that they could save as much as 32 million tonnes of CO2 per year. So IoT is about getting better outcomes, and it's brilliant to see the AMRC investment in a new building to showcase low carbon technologies. But SMEs, inventors, they need investment, as Paul says here in Lancashire. And I was so excited to see, you know, the work, Miranda, that you've done with the Red Cap Fund. And that is a brilliant job, and it is so well needed, you know, here in Lancashire, to get behind these companies that are bringing out these low carbon technologies. So we've got a smart building in Lancashire that showcases these technologies right through with some investment to pull that through, and we've got to get behind that. It is so important. So yeah, we need to look at the art of the possible. You know, it's all about motivation and training, and it's about planning and acquiring future skills. So we need to invest in that, and I think that's my 3 minutes. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Derek. Yes, there is an awful lot happening in Lancashire. Support programs for businesses going through the journey to putting net zero in place in their businesses, in terms of stimulating the education and skills offer that matches with that in our colleges, and then in terms of supporting low carbon tech being developed and demonstrated, like you say, at the AMRC, and receiving capital funding through RedCat and other routes as well, and the British Business Bank. There is an awful lot going on, and it's how to really make that work at the best pace it can for the benefit of Lancashire and the whole journey towards net zero. So moving on, very much in the same vein, Jed Innes, Managing Director of Low Carbon Energy. Thank you.
Good morning, then. Thanks for the invite, for having the chat. Just following on from everybody else, really, because quite a lot of what I was going to say has already been said. We're solar installers for the commercial market, and we see issues. We're dealing with Electricity North West almost on a daily basis, and grid's very difficult to manage for them, and as a consequence for our clients, it gets difficult. So in terms of the opportunities that perhaps present themselves, I think the one that we're really keen to develop, and technically it's already there, and it applies some of Derek's technology in Internet of Things and the grid, and is battery storage and turning buildings into virtual power plants, basically. So companies and businesses and homes generate their own energy, they store that energy, they trade that energy with the grid, they use the EV battery storage and the facility to be able to trade in and out. And I think that's where the future lies for us as a business. And I think in terms of an opportunity to, if you will, take that forward, I think if we can communicate as a group, so that's local authorities with the grid, with the LEP, with the business community, and work to the same goal. And we've had these discussions before, Miranda, about getting a single voice and taking out the silos of different agendas and speaking uniformly across the piece. If we all know where we all want to go, and we depoliticize it, and we just say, right, let's try and make the voice for the Northwest a uniform one. I think that, as much as the technology that's available, because we all know we've got the skills, we all know we've got the willingness, we all know we've got fantastic people in the Northwest. Let's bring that together, shout at the government and those people that can bring those, because it's going to need massive funding, isn't it? Whichever way we look at it. So what we've got to do is be that group of people that speak loudest to government and have a really good plan in place, and whatever bits of technology land underneath that's probably too big a conversation for here. But I think the most important thing is getting everybody singing off the same sheet. I think if we do that, we'll get the investment that we need, and then we can leave it to business to do, if you will, because we can deliver it. We know we can deliver it. Whatever it is, we can deliver it. We need the framework and a plan setting out and allow us to get on. And that's, I think, for us, that would be a bigger decision and a bigger plus than saying, well, let's focus on a specific piece of technology or whatever it is, or a way forward. Let's have everybody speaking in the same vein. And I think that's what I've got to say about the process, really, is let's do that. And I know it's a good bit shorter than 3 minutes perhaps, but I think that's what I believe. And I think if we did that, and these sort of conversations are helping that, and we've had these LEP conversations previously, but keep that going, I think, is more important than specific bits of what we're going to do.
Thank you, Jed. There's absolutely nothing wrong with stopping short after a really clear message to everybody. Everybody should learn from that. I think that's absolutely right. And I think that's a great message to give to Anthony and Paul and Stephen and Andrew and Gina, in terms of that's the thing, is can we have a single strong voice from Lancashire and from the north saying, yes, we can do this, yes, the technology is here, and now support us in how to do that, and let the technologies arise. Like you're saying, we've got the capability, but single strong voice of this is the way forward, and this is what we need to do. So that's extremely, I think, useful in terms of a message to come back from the north of England, from the northwest, from Lancashire, in response to the challenge is yes, we can, and let's be really clear about how we're saying that and united about doing that. I think that's really good to hear. So moving on to our next speaker, we've got Liz Gatherall, Director of Estate Services at UCLAN.
Hello, hi. Thanks, Miranda, and thanks to Electricity North West for the invite as well. I suppose I come from sort of two perspectives, really. I'm not an academic, but clearly UCLan has 25,000 students who will become the future workforce. And we're really keen to make sure that those students leave the university work ready. So I think, as we do currently, we want to continue to work with our business partners to make sure that we are training that sort of next generation of workforce with the skills that they need. I think the second point is, obviously we own a massive estate, and I think it's really important that while all these new initiatives come on for effectively new property and new build, we can't forget the sort of existing infrastructure stock that we have, which is very aged. Not only in terms of buildings, but in terms of sort of heat generation. And a lot of that still relies on gas and fossil fuels. So I think the effort that's needed to sort of transform that existing stock quite often, I think, is underestimated, and that is still going to be a massive sort of generator of carbon at the moment. I think, in terms of where we are, the timing is good. I think as horrible as COVID has been, I do think that it has made everyone aware of sustainability, perhaps in a way that they weren't aware before. And I think we've all seen over the summer how really, as we got sick, the earth got better, almost in front of our eyes, really. So I think, as has already been said, I think that the public want this, but what the public need is sort of a continual approach from government, really. And I think what, perhaps we've had over the years is a lot of stop and start initiatives. So we've seen things, over the summer about, well, we'll have a bicycle repair program. Well, that's oversubscribed within the first 24 hours, and then there's no more mention of it. We've heard talk about electric bikes, but there's no more mention then of when that grant might come to fund that. So I think it needs to be a more consistent message that people can sort of understand that there is a joined up targeted approach to achieving this, that people can then feel, well, it's a consistent approach. It's not stop start. We know that sort of grants will come in sufficient time that people can prepare the work that needs to be done. They can sort of procure the work and they can effectively carry the work out. And at the moment, some of the grant funding that's coming is coming with such short timescales that really you can't deliver what you like to deliver. You can only really deliver what you can achieve within the window of the grant. So I think that's another thing. In terms of legislation, I think it has to be, a bit of carrot and stick. We do need incentives because, as people have said, it is going to take a lot of money. But we also need some legislation to work with that as well. Because otherwise, the danger is it always comes down to what is going to be the cheapest solution, which isn't necessarily the best solution for the environment or cutting carbon. And I think, as people have said, we have to work collaboratively. This is everybody's problem, and no one person is going to fix this. And that's, looking at different ways of working. I think COVID has shown us all, really, that, I know from academics have been telling me for the last 10 years they couldn't possibly work without an office, and yet they're all working at home, a lot of them. So I think, COVID has made people really question sort of methods of working in a way that perhaps nothing else has done in a generation, really, or multiple generations. So I think it's important we build on that and don't go back to where we were pre-COVID. I think, this is a great platform to sort of harness all the benefits that have come out of COVID, really, and build from there. And I think as a university, we've declared a climate emergency in December last year. Personally, I think 2050 is too far away. We've committed to reducing our scope 1 and scope 2 to net zero by 2028, and halving our scope 3 by 2028. But we appreciate that's a big challenge, and it's going to take a lot of investment.
Thank you very much.
That's my 3 minutes, is it?
Thank you very much, Liz. I couldn't agree with you more about the fact that we're getting so many different funding opportunities really, really quickly flying at us but the timescales of them are all so short that you're snatching at short-term planning, you know what I mean? Whereas if someone had told us 6 months ago there was this much funding to do, you know, the things that could have been done over a long period of time, it is becoming very, very snatchy and short-term goals, and that really doesn't help. So to our last speaker for this panel session to do their introductory piece, Georgina Penfold from Inspired Energy.
Thank you very much, Miranda. Yes, so my name's Georgina. I look after public services and policy at Inspired Energy. We are the UK's largest and, according to independent rankings, leading energy consultancy, and we are based in Lancashire. Our head office is in Kirkham. So we really are playing a very direct role in this challenge of creating green jobs and supporting renewables and green investment in the region. Now, I believe that all challenges, when viewed in the right light, are also an opportunity. So for me, there's sort of three main areas of challenge / opportunity, depending on your viewpoint. Firstly, like lots of people have already said this morning, energy efficiency. All energy people will tell you that efficiency is the first renewable. We don't want to waste time, effort, and money generating more energy than we have to. So bringing consumption down first is key. So at Inspired, we really support the PM's announcement this morning to provide an additional £1 billion of funding for energy efficiency, and the extension of the Green Homes grant. Picking up on what Liz would say, it'd be nice if they extended some of the other grant schemes that are out there at the moment. But we'd urge homeowners, landlords, businesses, everyone with a premises to look at retrofit opportunities and really improve the quality of those homes and working environments through the use of low carbon technologies and energy efficient building services. Then connected to that is the need to manage how and when we use energy so that our energy transmission and distribution systems can run as effectively as possible. Now, what's missing from the PM's 10-point plan, or at least as a headline topic, in my opinion, is support on this kind of system flexibility. And I think this should extend to heat as well as electricity. So I'd like to see more support to capture waste heat from industrial processes and use this in heat networks, as well as investment in those technologies that enable businesses to contribute to the resilient, reliable, responsive electricity network. Now, ENW already do a lot of great work with businesses, raising awareness of these types of technologies and the financial opportunities that are available to businesses when they engage in this way. So that's something that we're good at in this region, and something that I think as a region we can really build on. Lastly, like Anthony mentioned right at the start, and Liz has just articulated very well as well, education, training has got to underpin all of this. We need to upskill and reskill workers in our councils, in other key public institutions, and in every business sector, so that people understand how they can reduce costs for their organisation and contribute to the decarbonisation agenda. I always say I would like environment to be treated like health and safety, and everyone knows about health and safety at work. I would like everybody to know about environmental impact at work. To do that, obviously, we can help businesses access support from organisations like Inspired, but more importantly, I think that we as leaders need to commit to this. And there's this opportunity right now to show this leadership and commitment across the county, both from our public administrations and from our industry. That's me.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Georgina. And the key point for me that you made in there was, first of all, the call must be for everyone to reduce their energy consumption. You can't keep offsetting everything and at the existing levels, or just assume that we're going to be able to replace all the generation we need for the level that we're at now with renewables in the short order. The first thing we must do is try and reduce our consumption. But also, of course, for businesses, if that first thing is reduce your electricity use, reduce your gas use, reduce your petrol and your diesel use, those are cost-saving measures. You know,
absolutely.
this is a win-win. This is not an either or, you know. So that should be very much at the forefront. So there are two initial questions I want to put back to you, panel, that I've picked up. One is I just want to ask you in response to the first discussion. We were hearing about things to be priorities, so retrofitting, reducing existing use, baseline standards for new builds, residential and industrial. What other things do you think should be at the forefront of activity or investment or funded support, or that our communities and our businesses should be doing to drive this response as quickly as possible? Anyone wants to go first, do wave or indicate. Go on.
I'm happy
Derek.
to pick that up.
Oh. Go on, Gina.
Sorry, I'll keep it succinct, Derek, and then pass over to you. For me, Miranda, I think heat is really missing from the government's plans. That kind of indicates that it is a challenge that we don't really know how to address yet. So it's very easy for the Prime Minister to say we want to invest in lots of offshore wind, and I'm very supportive of that. You know, more renewables coming online is a good thing. However, there is only so much that we can do on the electricity side until we start to wean ourselves off of or find an alternative to fossil fuel natural gas for heating. So we need to sort of put our minds and our engineers on thinking about kind of decarbonisation in heat. For businesses as well, kind of how can we address this is understanding what you've got. If you don't have the skill set in-house to do that, you know, there's lots of organisations that can assist. But I think knowing kind of what you're using, where you're using it, and where those opportunities are to find those cost savings, which conveniently also tend to translate into carbon savings, is so critical, not just for meeting you know, our decarbonisation agenda, but also for the economic resilience of our region.
Absolutely right. Couldn't agree more. Derek.
Yeah, I was just gonna actually. I completely concur, really. That I mean, I think it is about the art of the possible. It's about educating and knowledge. And whilst we've got great skills in Lancashire, I still think there's a lot that we could do to educate organisations on what we can do to reduce our consumption. I think about my old building, you know, and I hear what people are saying. It was a massive old building, the mill. We were right next to the canal, you know, and I wondered at the time, you know, what could we do to actually draw energy from a ground source pump from the canal into that building? And I actually made some inquiries with some good organisations, and it was a six-figure sum. But so the return on investment of that is going to be over time, and I think that's what we're all saying here, is that you're not going to get those short-term wins, but there are ways of being able to, you know, heat those buildings more in a no carbon way. I think about East Lancs, and you know, where I saw some of the, you know, the UV heating systems which heats you as opposed to the building, and I was sort of blown away that there's a, you know, a picture on the side of the wall that's heating me, and I felt really warm. And I'm like, wow, okay, you know, I could actually put that in my old building, whereas I don't really need that storage heater, which is completely inefficient. So, but I think where we need to start with is actually giving organisations the ability to be able to monitor what they've got, because until you start with that, how can you possibly manage it? So yeah, lots to do.
You've segued brilliantly into the point we'll come to in a moment about the heating of the older buildings, which Paula had mentioned in the chat, which I'll pick up in a moment. But Jed, you wanted to come in then?
Well, only to say that, like I said, I didn't mention it earlier, but one of the simple things that could be done was mentioned by Electricity North West early on, and there's a disincentive to put solar on a building at the moment. So you put solar on a building, your rates increase. It would be fairly simple, I would have thought. Well, I don't know if the politicians might tell me more, but if you turned it round and said, rather than disincentivize those guys that are trying to improve the building, turn the EPC rating round, and the lower the EPC rating, the higher your rates. And I don't know how that works mathematically, or whether that causes us a problem because we've got a whole very old stock in the Northwest. But what you're trying to do is create a position where, or if, again, going back to that framework where people have to do things, and what will happen is all of a sudden, if the landlords of all these mills have got much higher rates on the hands, then they either lose the tenant or they improve the building. And if they want to improve the building, they can go to the chamber and find out that there are grants available and local authorities and this, that, and the other. So that you're just turning on its head, and it's a fairly simple. I never quite understood why you would be penalised. I mean, it's one of the daftest decisions I've ever heard. But that's to me, that's just a simple way of doing it. Is turn the message around, really.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That is at the forefront of one of the policy asks that have gone into government about this is stop it being a disincentive to put solar panels and other low carbon tech into your building. It's madness that it is. So we're getting some really key points being reinforced here. The fact that heat is a really early thing that needs to be put on the agenda, because when you look at our carbon footprint across Lancashire and our homes, you know, and what they're heated by, you've still got a percentage heated by oil, then you've got a lot heated by gas, and we need to move towards that effective electric heating and how that's going to work. Yes, and the big policy changes to really drive the market, whether that's the baseline planning decisions about baseline standards for new build, and as Jed says, changing the balance so that it really is much more proactive to put kit on your building. Go on, Derek.
I was just going to say, there's a really good question from Sarah in terms of, you know, recovery and updating the homes and how we do it. One of the things we've got to be mindful is with all these smart devices going into these buildings is security. You know, and again, you know, here in Lancashire, we need to reflect on that to make sure that whatever technologies you are putting in are secure, because the last thing you want is someone coming in and hacking those systems and turning in, and from a, you know, that we've seen that to some extent at a city level being switched off because they're not secure. So it's really important as well that we invested in those sorts of technologies as well to make sure that, you know, and again, we need to have places where we can go and see that and educate those people.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So we were just beginning to touch then on the question from Paula about how do we create, how do we both support people with older buildings in getting the heating, the low carbon solutions into their buildings, but also where that's difficult, how do we create local district heating schemes and local heat networks so that those buildings that can generate can then supply that heat in a low carbon way to the local area. And Paula's right, with our building stock, you can't always easily attach renewable technologies to them. So if there is the ability and the drive and the funding to create local heat networks, that would be really positive. We've got a question coming forward from Sarah Gaskill from Lancashire County Council. How can we support the recovery, ensure links are made to new and emerging skills needs of businesses from the skill providers? So we need to be working with those skills providers so they understand what skills they need to be training people in, and then how we get those people into businesses. Any suggestions from our especially our low carbon involved businesses about what skills are needed and how do we create those links? Go on, Derek.
I'm just going to say, obviously, with the, you know, there is a low carbon initiative consultancy available through, you know, East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce to be able to help those organisations to be able to evaluate those technologies, and a great place to start. And it's a, you know, it's a funded program. So I would really encourage all participants that want to get a better handle on their low carbon footprint to reach out to East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce, because, you know, there's a way that they can come and audit that. So back to yourself there, Miranda, really, in some ways.
Thank you very much. Let me just do a caveat on that. The program that we run is fully funded and free and available to all small or medium-sized companies across Lancashire. It's not a chamber membership boxy thing. It's public sector funded and available to all small businesses across Lancashire, and Paul and everyone can tell you about that as well. Can we bring in, before this panel closes, Andrew and Anthony, if you'd like to add in any comments or any response or any feedback on the suggestions that are coming forward for the next actions and the focuses that we can have going forward for that 10-point plan. Andrew.
So I think it's really good discussion. Sorry I wasn't able to join right from the start, but you know, we need as many people as possible to feed in really good ideas, and focusing on energy is a really important thing to focus on. I mean, we've been tremendously successful at decarbonising the energy sector in the UK, more successful than any other country in the world. Obviously, decarbonising faster than anyone in the G7. But ultimately, we need to completely change the economy. We need to move from a linear economy to a circular economy. There are huge changes that we need to make in order to achieve net zero by 2050. And to pick up on some of the conversations before, the reason why the target is set for 2050 is, of course, the Independent Committee on Climate Change, who advises the government on these things. The scientists say that is stretching. That is really difficult to do. And we were bold when we decided to put that into law. If we think we can do it faster, of course we will. But of course, in order to hit 2050, we need towns, cities, businesses to have entirely decarbonised well before then, if we as an entire country are going to hit net zero by 2050. So we need different areas to be as ambitious as possible. We need innovation, because it's going to be the private sector that are going to come forward with some of the best ideas. And as government, we need to then look at those ideas and see how we can support them. 92 billion, I think, is the figure of what's been invested in green technology in the UK by the government since 2010. And of course, the announcement today is billions more going into this. But we really do need to focus on this, because we all want to decarbonise as quick as possible. We all want to leave the planet in a better place than we found it. But that is going to require such a radical change to the way we live our lives. We are only just scratching the surface at the moment.
Thank you. Anthony, quick word from you, if you like.
Yeah, I would just echo what Andrew has said. The challenges are significant, and the government announcement, I think, is really welcome. But it's the businesses, it's the universities, it's the colleges that are actually going to be the people who we need to deliver it, who will give people the skills that make sure that, as we said in the first panel, that we can install all of this new technology and then repair it when it breaks. And so, the next 10 years as we move towards electric cars and things like that, and then as we repurpose our electricity grid and our gas network, the challenges are significant. But I think bringing people together on forums like this gives us some hope that actually the skills and the will is all there. So yeah, challenging but optimistic.
Thank you very much. So thank you to my second panel and for all of your contributions. And I know that this is a group of people that will continue to work with to really shape the future plan for Lancashire. So handing back to Paul for our second poll.
Thanks, Miranda. And yeah, so the second poll should be coming up on your screens now. And, we could have rehearsed this with all the comments that we've had both in the chat and from all the speakers. So the question is, do you think Lancashire should have a more ambitious net zero target than 2050? Please could you choose your option and press submit now.
I think that again is pretty conclusive for you there, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely.
Answers, which is excellent. So moving really on to our sort of closing before we get to our final poll, which we have in a few moments. Just wanted to summarize a little bit of what we've heard today. And I have to say, I'm not surprised at what I've heard, because I know what Lancashire is like. And I know that we have a huge amount of passion and also expertise. Gina says, Gina didn't have the poll. Gina, we count you automatically as wanting 2030, okay? We will definitely count your numbers in there. So I know Lancashire, and I know that we really are a superbly innovative area in terms of low carbon technology and aspiration, and a really collaborative area in terms of our businesses really do want to work in partnership with Electricity North West, with our local MPs, with our local council and all the organisations to actually make this happen. And as we've heard today, it's an economic benefit as well as a climate benefit. There isn't anything to argue about here, but we need the support from government in terms of that future investment. We need the support in terms of those policy changes that can unlock the potential of the sector we've been talking about, like changing what happens when you put something on your roof in terms of your business rates, like making sure retrofitting and reducing our existing electricity consumption is right at the front of what we're doing, and ensuring we're really driving this forward for the economic benefit, but also for our long-term climate benefit. Are any of our speakers would like to give a final word before we hand back to Paul for our final poll? You're all fine, but thank you very much. Your messages have really been heard today. Thank you to everyone who has spoken and participated, and our audience, who are also extremely knowledgeable with all of their suggestions coming forward, and even now the ones that are still coming forward, such as turning to an agri-food sector and looking at how they've achieved their carbon targets, learning from all of our businesses and taking those forward, and hopefully the Lancashire can teach the Northwest as well, and the UK how to really drive this forward. So thank you to all of our panelists. So to hand back now to Paul for the final piece from Electricity Northwest and our last poll, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Miranda. I'll keep this very brief. As you say, it's great to see so much being discussed in a spirit of cooperation and collaboration across the region today, and so many calls for that. I think that's fantastic, and I think that is the way that Lancashire will rise to the challenges and make the best of the opportunities that are presented, and we'll do everything we can to support that. So just to close out, as I said right at the start, this is all about making sure that we have a very informed debate, and we give all the businesses and stakeholders in Lancashire a voice in influencing our investment programme and our business plan that we'll be submitting to the regulator next year, that will take us out to 2028. So we'll do the final poll in a second, but what I also wanted to just plug is that there are opportunities on our website to make your views known now, and there's questions that are ongoing, and then through December and into January we will be putting up our emerging view of what our next business plan should look like, and asking the question, have we got it right, as our first take on the priorities and the important things for Lancashire properly represented in that business plan. So I'd encourage everybody to look out for that and have your say. Make sure that all the businesses and stakeholders in Lancashire have a voice, and that they are able to express and tell us exactly what they want to see in our investment programme. So that will be coming up through December and January. And we'll just close out now, after my thanks to all of our participants as speakers today. Been brilliant to hear you all, everybody watching and contributing on the chat. And my thanks to Miranda, who has been an excellent host and chaired this whole event really, really professionally and really skillfully for us. So big thank you to everybody. So we'll just ask our final closing question, which is really coming to the heart of some of our investment plans. Do you want us, as we go forward, to be keeping our part of everybody's energy bill, and we need to recognise who pays for the investment that we make through their energy bills? Do you want to keep that part as low as possible, and make sure that we just react at the right times? Or should we be bringing forward future investment to increase network capacity and enable faster pathways to net zero? Should we be being proactive or reactive? So please vote now.
Gina says proactive.
You do surprise me, Gina. So I'm looking to get feedback on the result as soon as we can get that up.
That again, really, really positive response.
There we go. Yeah, that's great. So great. Thank you for everybody for that. It's really good to get that kind of very positive and enthusiastic response from the majority of the participants today, and all of that information feeds into our deliberations as we put together those investment programs. But I can reassure everybody that we will be bringing hundreds of millions of pounds of private sector money into Lancashire over the next decade to ensure you've got the network that you need. Thanks very much, everybody, for participating.
Thank you.